Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I just wanted to do a quick video on my Archon Type B, and we'll probably do a couple more videos on this because I don't know how much longer this one's going to be in my collection. So I kind of want to, even though I love this gun, yeah, it may not be in my collection too much longer because it doesn't really fill any particular role for me. I have other guns that's so similar to it, and I may keep it. It's based off several factors, but I'm not going to go into all that. But yeah, I wanted to do some videos on it because this gun's awesome, and I keep getting comments over and over again about what I did to the trigger. Now, just to play it kind of safe, I am monetized now. I don't think I'll be able to monetize this video. I don't know what they'll do with it. I hope they will allow me to monetize it, but I don't know if it will happen. But I'm not going to take the gun all the way down because this is a video I probably cannot monetize and show you guys that whole process of how to do the trigger job on this gun. But I do want to give you a quick idea of kind of what I did on this gun. Just show you some things. Okay, when you take this apart, this is basically your reset. It's got like a little dingus right here that pushes down for the reset. It actually, let me see if you can see that. There's a spring underneath this little nipple here, and you can actually take a rung out of that spring, but you have to be very careful about how much you take out because you still want full extension of that spring. But you can take that spring down a little bit, and you have to be very careful if that's something you're willing to risk, and you do this at your own risk. I'm not recommending you do that, but that's one thing that I did, is lighten the spring just a little bit. It still has full motion. It still has plenty of spring reset tension to reset this trigger, and this is your full reset. So without this spring, this gun will not reset. You cannot shoot this gun semi-auto without this spring working. So it's very important. But you can take this out once you take this thing apart. I'm not going to show you how to do it. And you can lighten this spring somewhat. You can also polish the top of this dingus, this nipple right here, and polish this part where it rubs up against this, and it's going to create a smoother trigger as well. Okay, guys? So you can smooth that out by polishing these two. These have been oiled and shot several times, so you won't see that polishing as much as probably there. But I have polished this tip and around this where it wears. And that'll also break in time, but I found doing what I did has made it quite a bit lighter and smoother. There's not near as much grit in that trigger pull. Also, I don't know if you can see it, but the trigger bar is in here, and it's behind the grip frame, and this trigger bar can be polished on both sides where it rubs up against the frame, the metal frame, and you can polish both sides of that, and that'll give you a smoother pull on that as well. Right here you see your firing pin safety. This goes back and rubs against that. You can polish this end where there's friction created against this surface right here. So that goes against this and moves this back. So that slides back to remove your firing pin block. So you can, any of these friction points you want to polish, you can probably lighten or buy a kit where you can lighten this firing pin safety block. You probably can change the spring on that. You might could do some work on it. I don't think I did anything to this one. I think I just smoothed everything out. On this end, I do not recommend that you change the firing pin spring. I would leave that alone. This gun is so smooth that the way that this trigger works, it's not like a Glock. It's not going to make a big difference in your trigger weight anyway, or the smoothness of the trigger, because I'll show you in a minute why that is. But you can take and polish this. This is what's held back when the trigger is cocked. So you can take and polish this end, this front side of this, and that's what holds the firing pin back when the trigger is cocked. So polish that end, polish over here where this friction is made on the firing pin safety. And that's about all I would do on this top end for that trigger job. Now, this gun is really cool in its mechanism. So instead of this being a double action, kind of a pre-cocked double action like a Glock, this one simply moves the firing pin sear. It comes through here. So it rests on this channel right here, on this ledge, and when you pull the trigger, it breaks and lets it forward. So there's really, the nice thing about this one, there's no backward pressure when you pull the trigger, so it makes for a really smooth trigger once you get the polishing done. So you want to polish the end of this right here. Underneath here you have a spring going this way. That's creating the tension. Basically the trigger bar comes back right through here, and this is where you polish for the firing pin safety block. So polish a little bit in here. Right here is where it pushes and disengages this from the firing pin sear. So this comes to the side and it releases the firing pin sear. So if you take, and don't remove much metal, but if you just polish where this thing makes contact with this and starts pushing it aside, if you'll polish that little angle and make it a little rounded, you won't get near as much of a harsh wall. You'll get a really smooth break. It's almost like an extremely light and short travel double action. So lighter than a standard single action striker fire gun, but also way smoother of a wall. It just breaks right through. Some people may like that and some people may not like that. If you like the harsher wall, leave that angle right there. But if you like that rolling break that's really smooth and it'll surprise you almost, then that's what I would do, is just round that edge off just with a polish. Not with removing any metal, but just with a polish on that little rounded edge. But also, this spring comes a little bit too, the spring that pushes on this mechanism that makes it reset, that's underneath here. It's a pretty large spring for what it is. You can take one rung off of that. Make sure that it gives the full travel and it's still got plenty of tension. Be extremely careful. But if you want to take one rung off that spring underneath there, it's still, when I'm pulling this, even without the sear engaging, you still got about maybe a 3-pound pull, but there's almost no extra pull when that breaks. So when I do have this cocked, there's almost no extra feel to this trigger than when I'm pulling it right now. So you got about a 3.5-pound pull, and when it's cocked, it may add 1/4 pound at most to the extra tension that you get when it's actually cocked. Can you see what that's doing right there? I'm hoping you can see. So polish all these contact points. You can take a little bit off this spring that's pushing this. That's pushing this part back and forth. The spring that's underneath this going this way, you can take a rung off of that. You might can take a little bit off this spring. You got to be extremely careful. You will ruin your gun and your trigger and have to replace those springs if you mess it up, and they're not easy to find. So that's one reason people keep recommending Rain 6 for trigger jobs. And I will say this, the reason why Rain 6 is so expensive is not because this is a hard gun to work on. It's not because it's, that expensive a trigger job. The thing is Rain 6 is probably one of the only people that probably makes parts for this gun that can replace them if they screw them up. So that's the reason why you pay so much for those trigger jobs. And I'm not saying that Rain 6 don't do some special things here and there that I can't do or that you can't do. They do, and they do a really good job. And I'm not saying they're not worth it. But for some people on a budget, they can't afford it. So I want to give people other options. So that's kind of what I'm telling you. That's pretty much it. Polish all your contact parts. This gun is fairly simple put together, but it can be a little bit complicated when you take it apart and you put it back together. There's not a whole lot of parts, but you got to make sure that you really analyze it. Maybe take a video of yourself taking it apart so you can remember how to put it back together. But it is a fairly simple design. It's not really hard. Most of it is pretty self-explanatory. So take it apart, clean up your contact points. You might mess with those two springs. Like I said, don't mess with your firing pin spring. Okay, guys, that kind of is going to make your gun less reliable. It's going to make you have not a hard enough hit on the primers to make them go off. So I don't mess with that stuff. The safety, be careful with those as well. We don't want to change the safety of the gun. We don't want to make this gun unsafe. We just want to make the trigger a little bit lighter, a little bit smoother. And this trigger feels great. So I'm kind of letting you guys know what's going on there. We just finished a video on the stipple job. So that'll post probably before this one. One thing I didn't like about this gun we'll cover real quick, and that was, this video is not about this, so I don't want to make it too much. This magazine release was not the greatest out of the box. We did some modifications on that. If y'all want to know more about that, we can make a special video on that, but I'm not going to do that right now. So I hope this helps you guys. If you have any more detailed questions, I'm not going to show you on video how to do this because there are other videos, I think, explaining this in a little greater detail. But and maybe there's not, I'm not really sure, but this gun is kind of unique. It's kind of rare. It's definitely not as well known or understood as the Glock platform, but it's a fairly simple gun to work on, and it's a fairly neat gun to work on. It definitely has a completely different recoil impulse, and to me just a cooler looking design than a Glock by far. So I know a lot of people are interested in it, but it's extremely easy. I let my buddy borrow this gun to shoot it in competition, and he stated how easily the gun is to clean because everything is kind of right here. There's no real hard places to clean. It's easy to get to everything. Even under here, the slide, everything is kind of, there's no real deep gaps that much, where debris gets in. Everything's pretty clean and easy to get to. So guys, please like and subscribe. Please leave comments. Please support the channel and just watch videos. Watch other videos that you might be interested in on my channel, and that supports the channel the greatest. Like I said, if you have any questions, leave them below. God bless. Have a great day.